Monica, and welcome to Flexible Perspective. So today I want to talk about the tragic story of LaKeith Smith. LaKeith Smith is someone that I read about 2 years ago. I will never forget, I was outraged and heartbroken by his story, but at the time, there didn't seem to be much will to do anything about his story. Now, there are a growing number of people paying attention to his plight and seeking to, these are my words, seeking to save him. So I'm excited because I want to add my voice to the chorus of voices of people seeking to save LaKeith Smith. So let me tell you the facts of the story first. Let's start with that. LaKeith Smith was 15 years old in 2015. He and his friends lived in Alabama. He and 4 friends, so 5 young men, burglarized a home in Alabama. Then they went to a second home that same night, and in the process of burglarizing that home, the police were called, they came. Most of the boys, as I understand it, ran out of the home, and one of the friends, allegedly Adante Washington, ran toward a police officer with a gun. He was firing the gun, allegedly, and the police officer shot him 4 times and killed him. So facts, LaKeith Smith, who we're talking about, did not fire any shots that night. The things that are not in dispute are that the police officer killed Adante Washington and that LaKeith Smith did not fire any shots and therefore did not kill Adante Washington. Okay, the remaining young men were arrested and charged with burglary and felony murder for the death of their friend, Adante Washington. They were charged felony murder under the Accomplice law. So the Accomplice law is a law that allows co-defendants, that says that co-defendants can be guilty of murder if a death occurs during the commission of a felony. So as I understand it, that's often applied, for example, in a bank robbery. So if there's a bank robbery and there are 4 robbers and one of them ends up shooting someone in the commission of that robbery, well, then they all can be charged because they had guns at the scene of the crime and they should have had the expectation that possibly someone would be killed. So again, typically it's when one of the accomplices shoots someone that the other defendants can be charged. Again, we have a situation where the police officer, trained adult police officer, killed the young man, and the young man's friends were charged with the murder. Okay, so those are the facts of the case, basic facts of the case. Let's kind of pick it apart for all the layers of bias, of prosecutorial power, overreach. First point is that the accomplices did not have to be tried. I mean, it was a choice to use the accomplice law. They could have been tried for the crimes that they committed, and I'm assuming they would have been found guilty and would have gone to prison. But some individuals decided that that wouldn't be good enough, so they applied the accomplice law. Here's another element that's very disturbing. In a world, even back then, where we were, many of us were concerned, outraged at the number of police officers who were killing unarmed civilian men, this group of individuals, whoever was in charge of this situation, they decided that the police officer not only killed a civilian, but they were going to charge other civilians with the crime of the police officer. There's so much wrong in that. I can't contain myself. I'm outraged by it. Anyway, that was the first problem, that they chose to use the accomplice law. The second issue is that there was a grand jury convened and they decided that the police officer had no wrongdoing. There was no wrongdoing on his part. So he was able to walk away and be free. Okay, if that's what they decided, how is it that anyone could wrap their heads around charging other people for a crime committed by someone who had no wrongdoing, right? How does that work? Again, I don't know, but it's something that should not have been allowed to happen, in my opinion. Okay, so we have the fact that they applied the accomplice law. We have the fact that the person who did the deed is set free, but the people who were not involved in him doing that deed are being tried. And then we have the fact that there was a plea bargain offered to all 4 young men of 25 years. 3 of the young men accepted the plea bargain. LaKeith Smith did not. I don't know him, but I'm assuming at the age of 15 that possibly he was advised by his attorney that there was no way he was going to be charged with that crime, the crime of murder, because of the fact that he didn't do it. I keep repeating myself because I want you to really get that part. But anyway, he rejected the plea bargain, went to trial. In less than 2 hours, he was found guilty. Here's another subtext of this whole story that's disturbing. I mentioned the fact that it was a choice to apply the accomplice law. It was certainly a choice to apply it in a case where a police officer was the guilty party. Also, they charged LaKeith Smith as an adult. So this is another intentional action. This is another calculation. So instead of leaving LaKeith Smith to the juvenile system, where there was a larger chance of rehabilitation for him, they calculated, they could sleep at night after choosing to try him as an adult, where he would be put on the track least likely to offer rehabilitation, most likely to steal his life without stealing it. You know, this is really crass, but a thought that I had about this whole situation was, I wonder, and I'm wondering, I never heard anyone say this, but I wonder if someone had the thought, 4 for the price of 1, meaning 1 was killed and yet effectively the lives of 4 additional young men were ruined. But anyway, I digress, as I am so likely to do. Let's get back on track. Here's another thing that I found annoying at the end of the day. So LaKeith Smith was found guilty. He was sentenced to 65 years in prison, okay? 30 of those years were for felony murder. Really, the person who did it, I know I keep saying it, but nothing. The other young men, a total of 25 years in prison. And then the judge comes and sentences LaKeith Smith. At the time that the sentencing happened, I think he was 18 or 17, but again, when the crime occurred, he was 15. The judge sentenced him to 65 years in prison. 30 of those years were for the murder of his friend. There were several articles that made note that led with the fact that LaKeith Smith laughed at his sentencing trial. I thought it was so interesting when I read it because those articles had a mocking tone. Many of those articles had sort of a, he got what he deserved, you know, he didn't even care, he was laughing. That is so damaging. It causes some people to subconsciously separate themselves from him. They lose any sympathy they may have had for him. They sort of other him, right? And that happens a lot of times. Because at the end of the day, laughter or not, we know that no one wants to go to prison for a day, 2 days, or 65 years. So we know his laughter was not of joy. And even if his laughter was, his laughter wasn't joy or humor. It just wasn't. Anyway, I have an article here that kind of illustrates what I'm talking about. The title is, Teen Laughs Before Judge Hands Down 65-Year prison sentence, sorry. Okay, so basically the article goes through and it outlines how the judge was complaining about LaKeith Smith's attitude. There's a point, and I'm going to read you this part, where Smith's grandfather, LaKeith Smith's grandfather, intervenes. So it says, Smith's grandfather made an impassioned plea for his grandson's freedom, asking the judge to show mercy. Give him a chance to tell you he's sorry, the grandfather pleaded with Reynolds. That was the judge. He's had every opportunity, the judge responded. I've asked him 2 or 3 times today. So the grandfather goes on to ask his grandson if he was sorry, and his grandson responded that he was sorry for his actions and sorry for his homeboy. That line just broke my heart, because at the end of the day, this young man is grieving for his friend. He's grieving for Adante Washington. And in the midst of his grieving for Adante Washington, he has to deal with the fact that he is going to go to prison for Adante's murder. So yes, maybe he laughed because he thought, what in the world is going on? This is ridiculous. Maybe he laughed with derision, not humor. And maybe he deserved that laughter. Okay, I've been cut off, so that's the end of that story, except for the fact that I hope each and every one of you will go and see what you can do for LaKeith Smith. Let's try to save LaKeith Smith, and let's remember that there are tens of thousands of other people out there who basically have been trampled under the wheels of justice. So we can do whatever we can, speak about their cases, call whoever we have to call, write whatever letters we have to write. And I have a personal ask. Can you please subscribe to my channel? I would love it if you would make a comment, like my video, but most importantly, subscribe to my channel. If you subscribe, if several people subscribe, I promise to make my next video only 7 minutes. No, just kidding. 4 minutes max. So, thanks. Have a great day.